Opening 178 CE, Germania Superior. We meet Marcus Valerius, a 19-year-old auxiliary soldier from Hispania, stationed at a remote fort along the Rhine. Marcus is a practical young man who joined the army to earn citizenship and escape poverty. He's literate, thoughtful, keeps a journal. He doesn't particularly believe in the gods, they're traditions, stories for the superstitious. During a brutal ambush by Germanic tribes, Marcus's sentry is slaughtered. Pinned beneath a dying horse, arrow through his shoulder, he watches his friends die. In desperation, pure animal terror, he prays to every god he can name: Mars, Jupiter, Mithras, even the local Germanic spirits his comrades whispered about. As consciousness fades, he sees a figure standing in the smoke and carnage, not quite solid, not quite there. A man, or the idea of a man, wearing armor from no era Marcus recognizes. The figure reaches toward him. Marcus wakes 3 days later in the fort's hospital, sole survivor, his wounds healing impossibly fast, and in his mind, a presence, a voice, confused, ancient, asking a question that chills Marcus to his bones. Who am I? Why am I here? I cannot remember. The haunting begins. Marcus realizes he's not alone in his own head. The presence, the entity, is with him always. It knows Latin, but also languages Marcus has never heard. It recognizes places, but can't name them. It watches through Marcus's eyes with the wonder of someone seeing the world for the first time, yet with the grief of someone who's lost everything. Marcus tries to hide this, tells no one, but the entity is desperately lonely, and Marcus, despite his fear, begins to pity it. The entity can sometimes move Marcus's hand, make him speak. It's learning, remembering fragments. It recalls battle, worship, blood on stone. It remembers being needed, called upon, fed by something. Belief, Marcus whispers one night. You're a god, or were. The presence weeps, a sensation Marcus feels as a crushing weight in his chest. What god forgets his own name? Rome, 179 CE. Marcus's term of service ends. He receives his citizenship, his land grant. He should go to Hispania, marry, farm, forget. But the god in his head is deteriorating, fragmenting. Sometimes it thinks Marcus is its priest. Sometimes it speaks to people who aren't there. Sometimes it screams in languages that hurt to hear. Marcus makes a decision. He'll help this forgotten god remember. It's perhaps the first truly selfless thing he's ever done. They travel to Rome. Marcus uses his discharge pay to consult scholars, priests, philosophers. The entity reacts to certain places: temples, old roads, the catacombs. They visit the temple of Jupiter, nothing. The Pantheon, a flicker of recognition, but it fades. Livia, a young priestess of Vesta, notices Marcus talking to himself in the forum. She's educated, daughter of a senator who died in disgrace, and she spent years in the temple's libraries studying old cults, forbidden rites, gods the state has tried to erase. She shouldn't help him, he's nobody, and she risks her position. But there's something in his desperation that moves her, and when Marcus, in a moment of trust, lets the god speak through him, Livia recognizes the archaic dialect, pre-Etruscan. Your god is older than Rome itself, she breathes. They begin researching together, late nights in temple archives. Livia finds references to abandoned gods, deities whose worship ceased, whose temples were demolished, whose names were struck from records. The Romans were practical. They adopted useful gods and discarded the rest. But gods don't simply die. Where do they go? The first memory. In the depths of the Vestal archive, they find it, a fragment of a treaty from Rome's founding era, a list of local deities the Romans subsumed or destroyed. One name has been scratched out, but the entity in Marcus suddenly surges forward, seizing control. It carves letters into the table with trembling fingers. Voltumna. No, not quite. The letters are wrong. Marcus's hand shakes, tries again. Velthur. The guardian of boundaries, Livia reads from the damaged text. God of thresholds, borders, transitions, between life and death, war and peace, wilderness and civilization. The entity speaks, and its voice is breaking. I guarded the spaces between. I was called upon when crossing from one world to another. When they forgot to call, when they stopped seeing the boundaries, I began to fade. The journey north. Livia has committed heresy by helping him. She can't return to the temple. They travel together north, following the god's fragmented memories, to Etruria, where Velthur was once worshipped. The old temples are gone, replaced by Roman civic buildings, Christian house churches, markets. But the entity remembers. Here was a shrine. Here was a sacred grove. Here was where mothers brought their children on the edge of adulthood, where soldiers prayed before crossing into enemy lands, where the dying were blessed for their journey beyond. Each memory it recovers is agony, like gathering pieces of shattered glass, and with memory comes the knowledge of what it's lost, thousands of worshippers, meaning, purpose, identity. Marcus and Livia fall in love during this journey, though neither speaks it. She sees his kindness, his determination to help a being everyone else would call madness. He sees her brilliance, her courage to abandon everything for truth. But the god is jealous in its way. It's dying, and Marcus is all it has. The Last Temple, 180 CE. They find it in the mountains of Etruria. A cave shrine, ancient beyond reckoning, still bearing faded symbols. This was Velthur's first temple, before Rome existed, before the Etruscans themselves. The entity is almost coherent now, but fading fast. It speaks, I remember now. I remember all of it. The prayers, the names of every soul who called on me. The children I watched grow. The dead I guided. I was real because I was needed. You're still real, Marcus insists. You're here, with me. I am an echo in your skull, boy, a ghost haunting a ghost. Livia has been researching the old rituals. She's found something, a rite of devotio, a binding. In the ancient world, a god could be sustained by a single devoted priest, a willing vessel. Not possession, but partnership. The priest would carry the god, give it form, speak its truths, perform its function. But the cost, Marcus would never be fully alone again, never fully his own. His life would not be his life. The god refuses. I will not do that to you. You have already given me more than any prayer. You gave me companionship when I was alone in the dark. You gave me purpose when I had none. Let me go. Let me end. Marcus, tears streaming. What if I don't want to let you go? For months, the god has been a burden, a curse, but it's also been a friend, a teacher. It's shown him the world through eyes thousands of years old. It shared memories of a Rome that was just 7 hills, of forests where the city now stands, of a time when the boundary between human and divine was thin as mist. You taught me that some things are worth preserving, Marcus says, not because they're useful, because they matter, because they were loved. Livia watches, understanding what he's choosing, understanding she might lose him to this. The ritual. They perform the devotio. It's not dramatic, no lightning, no divine manifestation, just words spoken in a dead language, blood on ancient stone, an offering of wine and honey, and a choice made freely to share a life. The god, Velthur, settles into Marcus not as an invader, but as a companion. Marcus can still feel his own thoughts, his own will, but there's another perspective there too, ancient, patient, grateful beyond measure. What will you do now? Livia asks. Marcus takes her hand. Valther speaks through him, but it's still Marcus too, somehow. We will walk the boundaries. There are still thresholds in this world, still transitions that need blessing, still crossings that need a guardian. The names change, but the need remains. And me? Livia's voice is small. Come with us, Marcus says. Just Marcus now. Help us remember. Help us teach others to see the boundaries again, the spaces between that everyone rushes past. 20 years later, 200 CE. An old man sits in the forum, carving symbols into a small altar. He has a kind face, weathered by travel. Beside him, a woman with gray in her hair reads from a scroll to a small group of listeners, mostly poor, mostly forgotten. Slaves between owners, soldiers between wars, the dying, the newborn. They speak of thresholds, of honoring transitions, of seeing the sacred in the spaces between. Most Romans pass by without noticing, but some stop. Some listen. Some make small offerings at the humble shrine. The god has a name again, if any few speak it. Velther, the guardian of boundaries. Not worshipped as in the old days, but remembered, tended, fed by the devotion of two souls who refused to let the forgotten remain forgotten. Marcus closes his eyes. Inside, Velther's presence is warm, content. Thank you, the god whispers, for giving me a name, for giving me a home. Thank you, Marcus whispers back, for teaching me what it means to be remembered. Livia takes his hand. They sit together, two mortals and one small, persistent god watching the sun set over Rome. Some things endure not because they're powerful, but because someone loved them enough to carry them forward.